Quick disclaimer before we get into the video, I sadly have not seen every film to be released in 2021. These are some films that if I'd seen them could have had a chance of being on the list. Also, I'm going off of UK release dates because that's where I am on planet Earth. So some of the bigger US or international releases of the year like these actually have 2022 release dates here and means I haven't seen them yet. Yes, first thing out the way, I know I'm about a month late with this video, but I wanted to spend January catching up on some of the incredible films that released last year. And despite how shitty last year was for the world, for films, it was a damn good year. That's why I'm not doing a classic top 10, no. I'm doing a top 21. And I'm going to include some honourable mentions too, because why the fuck not? I'm going to fly through the start of this list and then I'll dive into the ones that made it higher up on the list. But without further ado, let's get into it. The honourable mentions are Annette, West Side Story, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, The Witcher, The Nightmare of the Wolf and Luca. And now starting at number 21, we have Tick Tick Boom, a masterful feature debut from Lin-Manuel Miranda, helmed by an Oscar-worthy performance from Andrew Garfield. Coming in at number 20, we have Titan, the most shocking and tense cinema experience I've ever had. Titan is a grotesque, insane trip of a film. Julia Ducournau really explores the limits of the human body and the malleability of flesh in a horrifyingly beautiful way. Underneath all the horror though, Titan is a wholesome story of found love and how trauma can bring people together in times of darkness. And at number 19 is The Last Duel. Far from the train wreck that was House of Gucci, Ridley Scott's other feature film to debut last year is a fantastic historical drama that explores the malleability of the truth when told from numerous perspectives and the often silenced voice of women during medieval times, which in turn parallels the way our society is today. Coming in at number 18 is Don't Look Up. The film that seemed to divide everyone. McKay is certainly not subtle here with what he's trying to do with this film, yet I don't think that stops Don't Look Up from being a fantastic timely examination on the media, the value of science versus money, and how fame affects a person and the public's perception of them. What's so skillful though is that he manages to pack all these heavy themes in a fun, fast-paced comedy that'll have you laughing in the moment and then contemplating the state of the world long after the movie ends. I think when a satire is critiqued from being too obvious, that says more about our world than it does on the writing. And at number 17 we have The Suicide Squad. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is an absolute blast, far and away better than the train wreck of its predecessor. This is exactly what the film had to be, a funny, gory, action-packed and oddly charming thrill ride from start to finish. Gunn has now proved many times that he can expertly tell numerous stories and develop multiple characters that all build upon each other to create an extremely satisfying conclusion. And at number 16 we have The Lost Daughter. 2021 has been a fantastic year for directorial feature debuts, and The Lost Daughter is another fantastic addition into this set of films. A masterful deconstruction of motherhood and the toll that takes on a woman. The Lost Daughter explores the often messy journey of becoming a mother and reassesses how the world often views motherhood incredibly glowingly by showcasing the weight that responsibility can take on someone. The acting on show here is some of the best of the year, especially from the three leads. At number 15 is Black Bear. Captivatingly brilliant, funny and anxiety-inducing, Black Bear is a nuanced look at how fiction and reality often get blurred. The film is about a filmmaker suffering from a lack of inspiration, who retreats to an isolated lake house where she manipulates and controls her hosts in an attempt to create a work of art. Aubrey Plaza is just amazing and gives incredible performances in both halves of the film. To see how she plays off both Christopher Abbott and Sarah Gadon, who are both also magnetic in the film, is a piece of art. The glances and looks, the subtleties in her body language, the connection you feel between the characters feels real, and it's thanks to the wonderful performances. Coming in at number 14 is Encanto. Encanto is another charming, colourful delight from Disney Animation that really makes you wonder why we aren't getting more wonderful animated stories like this, and instead are being treated to the onslaught of half-assed remakes. Since Frozen, Disney have been on a roll with their premiere musical films, and Encanto is another fantastic addition to this renaissance of animated Disney musicals. Part of this is due to the fantastic music that accompanies the film, once again created by Lin-Manuel Miranda. The story is very serviceable for the film, it's predictable in its broad plot points, however there's still a charm to this film that makes you feel like you've been placed under an Encanto. At number 13 is Licorice Pizza. Licorice Pizza is the comedy film of the year for me. A genuinely non-stop fun ride that completely immerses you in the world of 70s LA. PTA is so loose with structure here that it genuinely feels like a glimpse into the lives of these characters. Like you're just hanging out with them, getting into antics and building fleeting friendships. To me, this is a perfect film with a few jarring flaws that bring it down from being a masterpiece. At number 12 is The Summit of the Gods. Incredibly underrated animated film that came out in 2021, and I'm confused why there's been nobody talking about it. The Summit of the Gods fits perfectly into that category of obsessed artist films like Whiplash and Black Swan, but deconstructs the reason why the obsession exists. Having two simultaneous stories run parallel that reflect each other and bringing them together to confront the theme of the film was amazing. Using climbing as a vehicle to explore these themes was fantastic, as it worked both as a metaphor and a physical thing to climb, and wasn't in your face with it being used as a device for the themes. And at number 11 we have Billie Eilish, The World's a Little Blurry. This might be the most shocking entry of my list, but this is a genuinely fantastic documentary. I watched this just to justify my Apple TV Plus subscription, and to my surprise found this documentary incredibly moving. This doc was a deeply personal look at Billie's life, touching on the subject of mental health quite a bit, which was handled with a lot of care. It also managed to capture the growth of this determined and self-critical person throughout their teenage years, and truly managed to capture her feelings at times. It was able to relate the audience to the problems she was going through, even when she might have seemed arrogant. It always came from a good place. Let's give it up for the films that didn't crack the top 10. Alright, and now on to the best of the best. As an unabashed lover of animation, there is so much in this film to gush over. Sony Animation Studios really has one of the best redemption stories, with this and Spider-Verse under their belts. The stylization of this film is delightful. The use of 2D animation to emote Katie's feelings, the beautiful colouring of the film, and the absolutely stunning cinematography at points made it so easy to look at. Specifically, the set design was insane. Every set piece was fully detailed and so precise, the world felt lived in. For example, even their family home felt like they had been there for years. They had truly been using their surroundings instead of being passive in the environment. Simultaneously hilarious and incredibly moving, it's such a beautiful representation of a dysfunctional family. The Green Knight is another fantastically shot thinker of a film from A24. Leaving the cinema, my thoughts were consumed by the film's themes and messages. What was the film truly trying to say? This will not be for everyone, but if you want something thought-provoking, something that's delicately and purposefully slow-paced, that begs you to question and ponder about the existential aspects of life, then this film is for you. The film truly wouldn't be as much of a powerhouse without the magnetic and captivating performance of Dev Patel as Gawain. Patel is awe-inspiring in this role, completely embodying all the nuances going on inside Gawain's mind with such ease. In the final act, the film is void of dialogue for the most part, yet Patel is able to flex and convey a plethora of deeply complex feelings so effortlessly. It's a pure treat to witness. On the more technical side of things, this movie is practically perfect. This film is stunning. It's hard to put into words how beautiful this film really is. Every shot feels so precisely chosen. Every detail placed in the frame is meant to be there. Paired with the incredible cinematography is some equally incredible lighting. Any scene that featured fog was utilised so well, but especially when the fog had an orange hue to it, every single frame was just a delight to witness. If you want my full thoughts on this film, there's a whole ass 40-minute video on the channel where I speak at length about this. But to summarise quickly, Spider-Man No Way Home is technically, as a film, not as good as some of the others on this list. However, to me, it's event cinema, which I'm a fan of, and concluded the arc of the MCU Spider-Man in an emotional and cinematic way. I got to see this film back in September at a festival, and since then I couldn't get this film off my mind for months. Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog is a slow, methodical examination of character dynamics set in the Midwest in the 1920s. It follows Phil Burbank, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, and his complex emotions when his brother, played by Jesse Plemons, marries a woman of lower class, Rose, played by Kirsten Dunst, and the rising tension between Cumberbatch and Rose's son, played by Cody Smith-McPhee. Cumberbatch delivers an outstanding Oscar bait performance as the lead. There's the classic actor shouting and screaming moments here, but what's more impressive is the subtlety of his performance. Throughout the film there's a subtext that plays out until it veers itself being the main focus of the film, but the nuances in the beginning of the film makes this reveal natural and believable. On a rewatch, the nuances in Cumberbatch's performance become even more apparent and meaningful. This film boils down to a raw character study, and with this come scenes of solitude where it's simply Cumberbatch with a beautiful score accompanying him. The raw emotions that resonates from Greenwood's score is a thing of beauty. It often helps express these subtexts the film implies is going on without saying a word. Paired with the stunning sonics is mind-numbingly gorgeous visuals. The cinematography really highlights the beauty of the West at this time. Ari Wegner saturates the film with these wide, all-encompassing shots that are some of the best of the year. The camera is also used in a way that enhances the thematic elements of the film too. Specifically, there's a scene where the camera rotates around Cumberbatch and Smith-McPhee that is just ingenious. Throughout this film though, the camera feels so intimate in the way it captures the actors and the subtle emotions they're feeling/hiding that makes you connect with them in a much deeper sense. I wouldn't be surprised if this film ends up higher on my list on a rewatch. Shiva Baby is a fantastic, funny and fresh first feature film from Emma Seligman. Not only does this film shine in its originality, but also in the care and precision of the technical aspects of it. Shiva Baby is truly a masterpiece in creating an atmosphere. For all of its short runtime, there's an extremely distinct sense of claustrophobia and anxiety that builds upon itself and spirals out of control until it all comes bursting out. This is in part thanks to the effortless cinematography throughout, with lots of uncomfortable angles and close-ups, helping the audience truly feel how trapped Danielle feels at the Shiva. The looming sense of anxiety and dread can also be attributed to the incredibly unique score. Using an essentially all-string score, something that would be more akin to a horror, really sets this film apart as a coming-of-age comedy. Every awkward moment suddenly took on new meaning. These scenarios and bombardment of questions from people were horrifying to Danielle, and truly caused her pain. Honestly, the constant questioning and attacking of Danielle was handled beautifully. Seligman captured the falsities and pressures associated with social gatherings, especially familial ones, perfectly. Despite this being a sad event, the communal attitude, gossiping and judging, was one of a more normal familial gathering, which highlights the lack of care truly for the people there. The purpose of the event is to find information on as much people as you can, and through the lens of Danielle, it's clear how uncomfortable and unsuited certain people are to these sorts of social formalities. This was painfully relatable. Shithouse follows a lonely college freshman who feels alienated from his peers, but forges a strong connection with his resident assistant during a frat party. I've complained that so many films focus on high school as the coming-of-age setting, but there's never been university films that explore this idea in a cinematic and entertaining way, and this done it perfectly. What an incredible feature debut from writer, director and actor Cooper Raiff. The biggest compliment I can give this film is how raw and real it feels. The dialogue is so natural and also hilarious. None of the characters feel like exaggerated stereotypes that often riddle coming-of-age films. They're real people with real complicated feelings. All the performances are incredible, specifically Raiff and Dylan Galula, who both give such beautifully nuanced performances and are such an amazing pair together, having a palpable chemistry that leaves you wanting more. I'm beyond grateful this film exists and is a new comfort film of mine. The sheer creativity and authenticity that this film has to offer is something else. Inside is nothing short of a masterpiece. Bo's work, while classified as comedy, and his great comedy at that, always has had an element of critique and social commentary in it, and often gives thoughtful observations on the world that are so beautifully intertwined to make a genre of his own. This special is in line with his other work, while also managing to expertly toe the line between comedy and sadness, with it being an insight to the deteriorating nature of some people's mental health in the last 2 years. The special is a must-watch for anyone that's had a hard time the last 2 years, as Bo masterfully creates a fun and poignant special that tackles with the feelings that many have felt in lockdown. Bo is multi-talented, and this special proves the extent of his talents. The fact he did this practically on his own is unreal. Also, it doesn't hurt that there are some incredible songs in it. The French Dispatch blew me away. Wes Anderson's newest film is the director operating at full Wes Anderson, and I adored it. In Anderson's prolific filmography, there's many films you can point towards that are pieces of art based purely on visuals alone. However, The French Dispatch is on another level. Every single frame feels meticulously crafted to perfection. The French Dispatch is an anthology film telling 3 main stories, a small light story, and an obituary throughout its runtime. Ingeniously, these stories comprise what would be the final edition of The French Dispatch, a magazine ran by Arthur Howitz Jr., played by Bill Murray. As the stories play out, they're intercut with Murray reflecting on the stories with their respective writers. The attention to detail and how these stories gets divided up will truly make you happy if you're a fan of the sequencing in Anderson's other work, from the very first frame all the way through to the credits. The staples of his other films are written all over this one. The vibrant, colourful landscapes of the settings, the picture-perfect symmetry prominent in each frame, and the tangible lived-in sets, making you truly believe that the chaotic kaleidoscope of a world he's created is real. Certain elements of The French Dispatch were truly special, however. Anderson's films have always been ones to play with the screen they are confined to, really making use of the real estate one has to tell their story the best they can. This film is no different, and in actuality is the director's best use of the screen. For starters, the 4.3 aspect ratio works so well here as it feels like you're reading the magazine the delightful world takes place in. The strength in using this aspect ratio really shines when the film breaks the confinements of the magazine walls. It's employed many times throughout the film, all to different effect. Besides playing with size in this film, Anderson also plays about with colour, again to dazzling results. Not only do the black and white sequences look just as, if not more beautiful than the vibrancy of his Technicolor scenes, but the way in which the story flips between the two is ingenious. However, there's an aspect of this film that is the reason I love it so much, and that's the writing. This is one of the best screenplays I've ever seen. The script has an abundance of wit and humour that feels so effortlessly funny that had my audience and myself in hysterics throughout the film. The 3 main stories are also stuffed full of emotion and expertly crafted characters that you could only need to spend 2 minutes with before you're invested. Many of the criticisms of this film surround the idea that the film feels disjointed and thematically incoherent. However, I don't think there needs to be an overarching deep theme for a film to resonate with people. This film is about people. The people who participate, the people who document, the people who observe, and how as people we find emotion in each other's stories. Tying it all together and packaging it in the form of a magazine is just genius, as it speaks to the power of stories, using the magazine as a metaphor for the stories we tell. Each story has its own smaller microcosm of this idea, the first being modern art, the second being the written word, and the last being food. All artistic ways to convey a story, much like the magazine telling a collection of stories inside a film telling us a story. It's stories that drive us, it's what makes us human. Spencer is a biopic, but it's a biopic in the way that only Pablo Larraín can make. The film fully integrates you into the mind of Diana and her fluctuating mental state under the oppressive control of the royals. It depicts a pivotal weekend in Diana's life, when she realised that her marriage wasn't working and made the decision to change the direction her life was heading in. The film is helmed by an outstanding performance by Kristen Stewart that will definitely earn her an Oscar nom, if not the award itself, for her enthralling portrayal of Princess Diana. It's truly something spectacular, from the near-perfect accent to the little mannerisms in her body language. The angst and stress was written all over her body, especially her shoulders. My god, they put on a performance of their own in this film. film. Every part of her performance felt delicately crafted, and it was done so to perfection. It's so infused with emotion that I found myself getting emotional at the strangest of moments. There's a part in the film where Diana is playing and talking to her children that is so beautiful but so devastatingly sad it breaks your heart. Honestly, after a few minutes I stopped seeing Kristen Stewart. She just became Diana. Easily one of the best performances of the year. The film itself is a technical triumph in every way possible. Jonny Greenwood composes a decadent, transcendent score that is just stunning. It creates this sense of anxiety that percolates the entire film. It never feels tense, just uncomfortable, that at moments builds into a sense of claustrophobia in the best way possible. In companion with this incredible score was equally incredible camera work, which is no surprise coming from Claire Mathen, who was the DP of Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Honestly, this is probably my favourite aspect of the film, which is saying something as I adored both Kristen Stewart's performance and Greenwood's score. The way the camera moves in this film though is a thing of beauty. It's utilised in such a smart way that subtly conveys the themes of the films in its delicate movements. Throughout the film, Diana expresses deep resentment towards the rigid and ordered way the royals want her to live. And the shots simultaneously reflect this order. The static shots are so rigid themselves and restrict the scenes to function in an ordered way. Pair this with slow pans, lingering shots that are just a beat too long, and the symmetry of the set design. It all helps in creating this incredibly uncomfortable and sickening atmosphere. This is then juxtaposed with such beautiful fluidity when we see Diana reflect on her childhood and early years. And then when she breaks free, it's just beautiful to see the theme so deeply integrated into all aspects of the film. Once every few decades we're graced with an epic, awe-inspiring sci-fi fantasy masterpiece like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. Dune is the next great to take its rightful place in that category. Denis Villeneuve and his monstrous team have managed to not only make a film, but craft an entire world full of intricacies and details, allowing you to fully sink into the grandeur and spectacle of the universe. Seeing this in IMAX truly adds to that experience. The world feels almost tangible, that you can reach out and feel the flecks of spice on your fingertips. This is simply put a feat of cinema, and there's no doubt that this will go down as one of the greats, as it should. Denis Villeneuve's distinctive voice and vision is plastered all over every perfected frame, bringing with him many of the staples found in his filmography. Starting off with the unbelievable cinematography. It's incomprehensible how this film looks as good as it does. There's not a frame that's in this film that doesn't feel like it should be there. Every shot is meticulously chosen to exemplify the beauty of this world, especially the all-encompassing aerial shots that are visually some of the best shots I've seen in a sci-fi film. The world of Dune is so rich with distinctive colours that are a joy to watch. From the muted grey and blue tones of Caladan to the wondrous notes of orange and beige that coat the planet of Arrakis. There's multiple chunks of this film where my mouth was agape just staring at the pure visual masterpiece on screen. It feels as if throughout the entire film, Villeneuve had a distinctive vision for how he wanted the universe to look, and he succeeded in making his vision a masterclass in visual storytelling. Dune also wouldn't be the film it is without the impeccable score that accompanies it. Hans Zimmer has truly outdone himself with this piece of work that is easily one of his career bests. Zimmer makes full use of an orchestra, much like his other pieces in his body of work. Yet here he pushes the limits of what's expected from him, making use of ethereal, hypnotic voices, unusual instruments like the bagpipes, and perfectly used synthesizers. The score isn't just a technical masterpiece though. There's so much emotion fueled into it that injects scenes with a tangible weight and atmosphere that the scenes simply wouldn't have without it. Obviously, with such a stacked cast of incredible actors, it's no surprise that this film is a tour de force in acting. And while every single one gives an impeccable performance, it's Rebecca Ferguson who steals the show. She is a master of subtlety. Her glances have so much emotion behind them. The pain and turmoil she's going through is written all over her face. Not a word needs to be said to understand how she's feeling. It's understandable that some people may find an issue with the story. It is, after all, an incomplete one. But the way the story is structured is a refreshing take for blockbuster cinema. The pacing is like nothing you've seen before. The 3-act structure is thrown out the window. Battles happen not even halfway through, and then we get slow, methodical breakdowns. This film has a structure that's unique to it and only it. Personally, I loved this. It kept me fully invested throughout, and the unusual pacing weirdly felt more natural to me for how this story would take place. We're so used to having films now that have a theme, and that theme is wrapped up with a bow at the end. Now this film doesn't do that, yet there's still plenty of themes to unpack. Instead, this is a film that is meant to create a world, laying the foundations for another story, and also managing to tell a heartbreaking story of destruction at the same time. And that's it. 2021 was an incredible year for films, and I'd love to hear from you what your favorites were. If you liked this video, give it a like and consider subscribing. And before you go, don't forget to let me know in the comments below what you found in frames.